Welcome to Shed Matters, where it's all about blokes, bikes and stuff that really matters. It's the start of a new summer series and we're interviewing some incredible people talking about their stories, their experiences on bikes and going inside their sheds. Now, the first interview is with Colin Bayman. Colin is an amazing guy. He's the founder of Perth Adventure Riders. He was one of the original Krusty Quinns. Been riding bikes since he was about 13 and had some amazing experiences on bikes, had some pretty bad accidents as well. 2006 he broke his neck, so he's had his share of challenges along the way, but he loves bringing guys together out riding dirt bikes. So come and join me. We're going to go inside Colin's shed, we're going to look at some of his toys and we're going to hear some of his incredible stories. Cole, thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming, Steve.
So take us back to the beginning. So are you a Perth boy?
Perth boy, born and bred in Perth, double view. I've got two older brothers who sort of probably introduced me to bikes.
Oh, did they?
So yeah,
they started that?
They started that.
Okay.
They always had a couple of trail bikes in the backyard, and of course, because they were a few years older, they'd be off at work when I was 13, 14, 15, and they, silly enough, they'd leave the keys at home for the bikes. so we had a bit of bush nearby, Carrinup Bush. You know where the big water tower is across the road from the Carrinup Shopping Centre? I knew that like the back of my hand.
That was you?
That was my playground.
Okay. So then family was Perth, obviously?
Yep.
So now you're married nowadays?
Married, yeah. We've got a blended family. We've got 5 children between us and 10 grandchildren.
Wow.
Yep.
So quite a tribe.
It is a tribe, mate. Yep. In more ways than one.
So then those early days, so is that when you started about 13, 14?
That's when I probably started riding bikes, yeah, jumping on proper motorbikes, you know. There was mini bikes in the suburb to ride around on, but, you know, getting on, 125, 250 trail bikes. That was around that age.
Yep. So, and then Carrinup would have had a fair bit of bush around it back in those days.
Lots of bush and lots of big boggy sand, black boggy sand that you get in the area.
Okay.
So you get to learn to ride sand when you're 13. You can hardly get your leg over the top of a 250 underpowered TS 250. You learn to do it well.
Yeah, okay. So how do the folks feel about you getting out riding bikes?
Well, I think the older brothers paved the way for me, so it was okay. I don't know, Dad really didn't have a fear for bikes, so it was okay.
No,
He had bikes when he was a young guy.
Did he?
Yeah, so he used to talk about his, BSA Bantams and bits and pieces that he had. He never had dirt bikes and he didn't race or anything, but he had motorbikes as a young guy.
Okay. So he wasn't still into bikes in that era?
No, not at all.
No, he got out of it?
Yeah, but he could still ride a bike. We used to get him to throw a leg occasionally.
Oh, did you?
So he's 88 now and he's in a home, so there's definitely no motorbike riding.
He's not going there anymore?
But I think he was probably, 75 the last time he had a ride
Is that
on a
right?
bike. Yeah.
Okay.
So he was okay. And then, of course, I was also lucky enough that my older sister met a guy who was into bikes and cars and all sorts of racing sidecars. So he had a love for the stuff and he gave me an introduction more into the racing side of things, and he became a bit of my hero because he had, sidecars, a Quacker 900, an XC V8 panel van.
Oh, so all the toys.
He had everything that any man can want. I looked at him and said, if I ever get to this point, I'll never need anything else in my life.
I'll have arrived.
I've arrived. And he'd take me out and let me ride the bikes.
Oh, would he?
Yeah.
So was that speedway stuff then, or?
No, motocross.
So motocross.
Yeah, motocross sidecars he was mainly into.
Motocross sidecars.
Yep.
So crazy stuff.
Crazy stuff, and you do an engine rebuild, and you need someone to sit in the chair out at the Pines while you're running an engine in. So it's
you
want to
come and hang on.
And I'm 15, of course I'm going to go.
So fun days.
So that was great. And then I never really got a proper bike until I hit 17, and I could buy. I was working, I could buy my own bike. And my first proper bike was a little IT 175.
Which were great bikes.
Fantastic, and I joined the Tenere and Enduro Club.
Oh, did you?
And
So when was that? Can you?
Well,
what era was
that? That was about 1979 or something like that.
Yeah,
I suppose. It was pretty early on, and then I got a PE, and then I got an IT, and I just moved through the ranks of what you're doing in that era. And
you had a PE. They were a horrible thing at times.
PEs weren't great, but the IT was a nice bike.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, nice. Yep. So what was work? What was when you left school?
Apprentice mechanical fitter.
Oh, okay, and where was all that?
Public Works Department out at Welshpool. So it was mostly mechanical fitting, but also worked in the mechanic section because I had a love for for motors more than diesels and effluent pumps.
Yeah, okay.
So I moved into that field, and but I finished my apprenticeship as a mechanical fitter, and then I went straight in. My first job was as a motor mechanic.
So with Public Works, or you went somewhere else?
No, they actually sacked you the day that you finished your apprenticeship.
Because that was a bit of a thing back then, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was young guys today probably don't get. You know, we're all desperate to hold on to good tradies, and back then they just moved you on.
Yeah, it was all about turning it over and bringing some new guys in. It was one of the government's jobs was to train as many apprentices as they could.
Yeah, right.
The tradesmen. So I ended up down at Premier Motors on Scarborough Beach Road.
Okay.
That was the first 12 months of just working as a motor mechanic out in the workshop.
Yep, just grinding.
And I had bikes at that stage. They weren't flash bikes because it was obviously there was a baby had come along by that point, and not a mortgage as yet, but wasn't too far around the corner.
Yeah, okay.
And so the bikes were things like RD 400s, and
cool.
bikes that you could buy for $500, $800, that sort of stuff.
Sell and get your money back on them.
Yeah. And I had a little YZ 250 for sort of like 4 or 5 years during that.
So
period
had it always mainly in those early days been dirt stuff, or was it a bit of road as well?
That was mainly dirt, and the road bikes were really for nothing more than the commuting.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't jump on road bikes and
so you never road bikes weren't like, this is the thing I want to get into.
Nah.
It was always riding in the bush.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
probably my first couple of decent road bikes weren't until I was in my mid-20s. GSX 1100s and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and still commuting. Then
I started to use them a little bit, and I was probably doing a little bit less dirt, but that was the only time I wasn't doing it.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't know what that change was all about, but it was a change that took place.
You have to
I had an XR 600 at the same time,
okay.
But I wasn't really using that as a dirt bike.
Yeah,
because it was
ride.
a big, heavy thing that, it wasn't something.
Yeah, it's a farm bike, yep. So is that then, because you were one of the original Krusty Quinns guys, weren't you?
Yep.
So is that about that era? Is that when Krusty started, or was that later?
Krusty's was early 2000s.
Oh, okay.
So there'd been a period, I'd had a marriage and built a house, and that had failed, and I'd moved on, and I did a bit of travelling around, and I met my current wife, which has been current for a very long time, and I met her in Tenere.
The second and the last?
Yeah, the second and the last, I hope. I couldn't afford another one. And that was about, I suppose, the bikes that I had then. We had kids. We had 3. Most of the time, we had 2 or 3 bikes. And they were, Yamaha farm bikes and a couple of little DS 80s.
Yep, just
and so it was for the family. So we'd load up the trailer and we go out to somewhere for the river for the day and have a barbecue and ride motorbikes.
A bit of fun.
Have a bit of fun. And then we came back, and the older brothers. The kids had grown up. My kids were starting, to leave home, and they weren't on our hands any longer. And we were looking for something. So we said, what are we going to do? We'd race go-karts early on. When I was a teenager, my family had go-karts.
Yeah, okay.
And so we went and had another little look at go-karts, and then we thought about motorbikes. And so we hired some TTR 250s and flogged around Mundaring for the day and said, that's it.
This is you guys. So that was the 3 of you?
The 3 of us, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because, you're pretty well known in dirt bike circles, and I've been on a few rides and a few trips with you, and in fairness, they give you a lot of crap.
Of course they do.
But you're obviously really close with the boys.
It is. It's been a great thing.
Everyone talks about the Bayman boys. You're well known, so...
No, it's been a great thing because particularly enduro style riding, when you've got bikes on trailers and you're sitting in cars, you spend a lot of time together.
Yep.
So as brothers, we've had a lot of time, and it's been good for bonding our relationships and just making it work.
What was Krusty Quinns?
Krusty Quinns was a website for a bunch of guys to get together and ride trail bikes. So as I mentioned before, I was on a ride up northern suburbs in the bush, and a guy came up alongside me and took a photo of me, and his name was Jaw, and he told me I was a Krusty Quinn. And so I went home and found myself on the website with a ride report and a story about me and my brothers and where we'd ridden and what we'd done in our life.
And that was the beginning of it?
That was the beginning of it. So Jaw sort of pulled away from the bikes a fair bit because his passion was around, he was a bit of a nerd, and he wanted to have a website rather than ride motorbike. So I took over, not the running of the Krusty, not the administration or behind the scenes stuff. Another guy who still rides with me today, Tiger, he took that over.
Okay, so that was Tiger.
And he's run it ever since. He looks after that in the background. But for 15 years I promoted Krusty Quinns.
So Cole, we're in the shed. You got to show us your toys. So what have you got? You got the DRZ and the Tenere. So let's start with the DRZ. Is this the main off-road bike you're riding?
This is the main off-road bike, and this is actually my favourite bike, the little DRZ. I enjoy these bikes. These are great. So when we flicked over to adventure riding, the first bike was a DR 650, and I kitted it out in a similar fashion to how this has been kitted out. And I also had a Tenere 660, so I had a little bit of a similar setup to what we've got here.
Yeah, okay.
I found the 650 just a bit big because I'm predominantly an off-road rider and not a road bike rider.
Yep.
I like the smaller bikes. I like the lightweight bikes. So I decided to give the DRZ a go as well. And I did have a DRZ set up as enduro at the time.
Because a lot of the par guys are riding these.
There's a huge number of them out there.
So, I mean, but out of the box, they're not necessarily the ultimate off-road bike. They're a bit of a compromise, aren't they?
They are. They're not a great bike for transport sections. Going down the bitumen road, if it's got enduro gear on it, if it hasn't been adventurised, it's no good for it whatsoever. So I suppose there's a few things that you need to do. You need to put a bigger fuel tank on it so you can get some mileage, so you get some range.
Which is about all of them, isn't
So
it?
this 17 litre tank gives you about 350 to 380 kilometres, depending how hard you ride
Which
it.
is ideal.
You've got to take the enduro seat off and you've got to put some sort of adventure seat on. This is just a seats concept. It's not an expensive seat. It's a
Which they make, but they make really good seats.
You can sit on it all day.
Yep.
It's fine. You've got to do some work on the gearing. So I have to play it around with the gearing a fair bit. I've got a 4414 on it at the moment, and that seems to be, it's okay in the dirt. It's actually fine in the dirt.
So do you change that depending on what you're riding?
No, I just leave this on all the time.
Same gearing?
Yeah, because I'm not doing enduro riding anymore.
Yep.
So that gearing's fine. I can sit on 110 all day and I can overtake something if I need to.
Yep.
And if I'm in the bush, it's still okay, unless there's a massive hill climb or, you know. Probably the only downfall of the gearing with adventure gearing is when you're going downhill, it's a little bit too fast if you're in technical.
Yeah, okay.
riding.
It's running away from you a bit.
Running away a bit. You need somewhere to carry your gear, so you need some racks on the back, you need some side racks. I use soft panniers, some panniers called Andy straps.
Yep.
I find they're quite durable, they're quite good. A tank bag just to help out with carrying stuff around. Hide behind a little bit of a fairing. This is a fairing that's been imported from Canada.
I've seen a few of the guys are running the Britannia, not?
Britannia, yeah.
Yeah, they look like they've done a really good job on it.
They are, you know, all the power and the electrics up there. You've got USBs and power outlets, and you've got somewhere to mount your GPS. Go on.
Sorry, one of the things that see guys say is that out of the box the suspension's not great.
No, it's not. It's not. You know, particularly when you're a slightly larger frame gentleman. Which most Aussies are.
Suck it in.
Let's face it, there's not too many Aussies that are 65 kilos. So I don't do a lot to these. When I had my WRs and EXCs and the Enduro day, I do the valves and the springs and give it the, you know, take it to one of the gurus and give it a birthday, get it done properly. All I do on these things is just change the springs out so that it can carry the weight on the back, it can carry me and the fuel, the extra weight on the front. I leave the standard valves in there, put some 10 weight oil in the front forks, job done.
Yeah.
Don't do anything more.
Makes them much nicer.
Yep.
So, and you're doing long trips on this, or is that what you're using the Tenere for?
Well, this year I took the Tenere up, on the par ride up to Carragini, and that was a beautiful bike to ride on. But the two previous Midwest rides I've done on this thing's fine to do, to go to Carragini and back on.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. There's no problems with it at all. Is this thing better? On that sort of ride, it is. It's a lot. Right. You know, I can sit on much higher speeds. It's much more comfortable, and it doesn't rattle and shake like this thing does.
So, and what are these then? So off-road, Cole, because I mean, a lot of guys are right into these mid-range, like the Tenere, the new Tenere and the KTM 790s or whatever, become really popular. So how do you find the difference between them?
Well, I think that, you know, the media want to promote this thing as a bike that you can, you know, jump on and throw around and, you know, go over tabletops and ride around a motocross track on. You know, and I've got a dirt bike background. I can't ride this bike like that. It's not a bike that I can easily throw around. I'm not used to 195 kilos. I find it sometimes when I come into a corner a little bit hot, I find it a bit harder to stop than what I do on a little bike. When the going gets tough, I find, and it's technical, I find I got more confidence on the smaller bike than I do on the big bike.
Yep.
But there's a place for this bike.
Yep.
You know, and going down gravel roads and you know and exploring and doing proper adventure work. This thing's beautiful. it's bigger shortfall really as it comes at the moment, and you can't. There's no other tanks available. I'm only getting 280 k's out of a tank.
Yeah, okay. So it's not great for outback Australia. That's
Not
a
great.
struggle.
So you got to throw some tanks that I've gone. You got to throw them on the side.
Yeah, okay. Get you up to 300 or 400 k's or something.
But you do everything on a bike like this that you do on a bike like this. Everything needs to be changed. You need to put bash plates and engine guards. I also put side protection on this because there's a lot of fiberglass.
Yeah, it's a lot of nice plastic in that. Yeah.
So you put a little bit extra on. The suspension's pretty good. I haven't done the suspension yet. I'm not even sure if I'm going to do it. It seems to work okay.
We've kind of got through that Krusty Quinns era. So is that where Perth Adventure Riders started?
It did. It was when Krusty Quinns had finished for me in terms of the group and the enduro and just getting a little bit older and not bouncing as well when I was hitting the ground.
Yep. So then it was more about adventure bike riding.
Yep. It was a deliberate change to say, look, we're not going to tear around the bush on our 450s anymore. We're going to go and do something else. So it was have a look at adventure riding. We got out. The three of us bought ourselves DR 650s. And hooked up with a couple of guys and did a run up the Gibb River Road and up to Tenere and back.
Oh wow! So it was a big ride first up.
We just jumped straight into it. 30 days away on the bike.
Yeah, well.
And come back and said, this is great. Now I can't remember if Perth Adventure Riders had started at that point or not even. I think it's about 2015 now, and there's a sort of 6 or 8 of us sort of riding in a group, and I'm getting a little bit sick of emailing them during the week to say if you're coming for a ride. So the idea is let's start up Perth Adventure Riders, because I'd searched for something and there was nothing. A group hadn't been set up as yet for it. So we started. We had maybe 6 or 8. I can't remember the exact number. And within a couple of months we had 30, and within 6 months we had 500, and it just grew. And now we've got 4,500.
Yeah, it's crazy big now, isn't it?
Yeah. So we've got the Perth Adventure Rider Facebook page. We've also got the buy and sell page. And we keep those 2 pages separate.
So I had a quick look, and it looked like last year there was probably somewhere between 60 and 70 par rides on the site. You've got a lot of people running a lot of stuff now.
Yeah.
You'll still seem to be the core of it. You're probably running 30 of those rides.
Oh yeah, probably, yeah, somewhere around that sort of number. Well, I probably try to run an event at least once a fortnight.
Yeah, right.
And we also have a bit of our international stuff, as you know. So we've been to PAR's been to Laos and Vietnam and Malaysia and Thailand and Indonesia and New Zealand. So we've had a little fair shares out there as well.
Yeah, you have. So I kind of affectionately refer to it as this fun group of misfits. So where do the guys come from? That show up for a ride.
Well, I think misfits is the right terminology for it. There's people from all backgrounds, all walks of life. Public servants, unemployed, bank johnnies, carpenters, electricians, retired guys. There's a bit of everything out there. So, and then
age-wise, so is there a demographic age-wise of the guys?
Yeah, old and fat.
Thanks, mate.
Well, I fit perfectly. No, look, I think the age group. You've been on a couple of rides with us when there's probably the average age has been high 50s.
Yeah.
I think the Midwest ride you did a couple of years ago, maybe 2019 or something like that.
Yep.
There wasn't a lot of young guys on that ride, and so there's a lot of guys in their 60s riding.
Yeah, and good riders.
Good riders.
There's some guys riding in the 60s who are seriously good.
They are, mate.
So, and you got that. So the rides I've been on, you've got so many different skill levels, but you're trying to, within reason, fit a ride in for, most guys skill wise.
Well, we do. We look at who has the least amount of skill, and that's what we design the ride around generally. Because there's no point if the guy can't get up and over the hill or over the log or through the river. But we also use a cornerman system. So the cornerman system, what it has in its favour is that a weaker, slower rider can still ride in the pack and get at the end of the day still get to the destination at the same time as a faster rider.
And he's getting a few breaks along the way and get to breathe.
Yeah, that's right. Occasionally we have the odd disaster, like you're well aware of, the disaster we had in 2020.
Yeah,
I forget what year it is now.
Yeah. We're in 21, folks.
That's right.
Because that was a pretty monumental accident that could have gone really badly wrong, and obviously it was a very serious accident. But in one sense, the outcome from a par point of view was pretty incredible.
Well, it was. It even bonded the group together a
Yeah.
little bit more than what it was initially, albeit at that point. But he was. It was an accident. It was a clear day. And we were all sitting on 110 kilometres an hour going down a straight road, and a kangaroo come out and took him out. No one knows how it happened.
Yeah,
no one saw it. He doesn't remember it, but he did spend 7 weeks in intensive care recovering, and he's still recovering. But Pa banded together and we raised some money and helped him out because he was self-employed. We also took his $4,000 DR 650 home and spent $5,000 on it repairing it.
As you do.
As you do. So he's got his bike's going back to him. It's a ripper, It's twice as good as
I saw it. It looked better than a brand new one.
That's right. And that's a lot of guys doing a little bit each. That's a guy handing over a tyre, another one handing over a set of handlebars, another guy handing over a clutch lever.
Yeah, right.
It's just a whole pile of people that came together, and then a few guys who actually put the spanner on the bike and worked on it. But I think that's part of what Pa is, and if you've known me for long enough now, and motorbike riding isn't everything that Pa represents. It's also about bringing guys together. It's about men's mental health. It's about mateship.
Yep.
And that's what we focus on. And that's probably you've asked me to come here tonight and talk about sheds, and we've sort of talked about bikes. But sheds is the nucleus of it. This is where it all starts, and this is where it all happens. And so this is my shed, and this is my man cave, and this is where I'm at peace and where I can come and work on my bikes, and I can close the door to the family, although the family open the door a lot and come in. But that's okay as well. I've got my little bit of space out here. My mates come around.
I was going to say, you have a lot of blokes who come around, but don't you?
We do, yeah.
And it's obviously, and that's kind of, when we say shed matters, that's that whole thing about maybe community and connection that, blokes don't get it sitting at a day spa or, it's not that we do it with this stuff.
Yeah.
So, and you're doing a lot of that. And I suppose you've seen that where there's guys who are at different stages of life, things have gone well, some things have gone bad, their marriage might have failed or the relationship and you don't have that chat normally, but if you're in here working, that's probably where those conversations
this is where you get to know someone, isn't it?
Yeah,
when you're sitting around and you're having a beer at night or a coffee in the daytime while you're working on your bike. I've actually got a workshop here in tomorrow.
Oh, have you?
And there's 5 guys coming in the morning, and we're going to pull apart a couple of DRZs, and we're going to fix up the suspension and replace springs and put it all back together, and we're going to become better buddies by doing that.
Yeah, and that's how you connect, isn't it?
That's how you connect, yeah.
And you found, because everyone's got a story, haven't they? It's like your story, which you've been good enough to share, is amazing. But the guys who'll be here tomorrow, they've got their journey and their story.
That's right, and they'll become part of Pa, and they'll become part of this, small little group.
It's like a family, isn't it? It's become that. I mean, I saw that this year. Out of that, really, what could have been a tragic circumstance, it's really drawn people so much closer, and almost like a family. I mean, the Christmas thing was fantastic.
Yeah, 85 people together.
Yeah, 85 guys who've got no other connection in life than they like riding and hacking around the bush, who showed up and became a family and supported, one guy and got him through that journey. So it's pretty incredible.
It is.
So let's close with this. So if we say shed matters, how much does this stuff matter to you?
Well, this matters more than anything to me. I was lucky enough that a year ago I could demolish the old house and build a new house. And my old shed wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. It was only a single garage, and it was set up okay, but it didn't have a lot of space in it, and it didn't have a lot of nice gear.
Yeah, nice shiny.
Which I've got here, and my compressor's set up there, so I've got air.
What you can't see is the big television and all the racks, folks.
The racks, it's got the fridge. I've got the microwave out here as well. So if she ever boots me out of the bed, I've got a swag as well. So I can just roll the swag.
This is where you're coming.
And it takes further than that. What the camera cuts here, I've got this thing air conditioned as
well.
Yeah,
it's sitting here. It's about 37 degrees outside, folks. It's beautiful in here.
It's 24 degrees in there. So I've got an air conditioner. I've also insulated my garage door, which I don't know if you can notice as well. So that keeps the heat. The sun hits that in the morning. So this is a lovely room. I can keep it warm or I can keep it cool, and I can keep it drink cool. And I watch the news, and I can have the TV going, and I can just have my own space. And sometimes it's the midweek, get the bike ready for the ride. Sometimes there's not a lot to do, but there's just change the oil, change the filters. Sometimes it's just repacking the panniers and making sure your tools are right, putting it back together, making sure that your bike's going to get you where you need to go. I've got spare tyres up there. I've recently bought myself a tyre changer. Haven't done a lot of tyre changing yet, but it's there ready to go.
You'll probably end up doing it for your mates.
Well, that'll be a good thing.
Part of the fun, isn't it?
That'll be a good thing. So the shed does matter. It matters a lot to me, and it's good for my own mental health.
Yep.
And I'm the type of person I like to be inclusive with people. When I advertise a ride, I don't advertise a ride so 6 guys can come. I'm hoping 66 guys can come.
Colin's idea of a ride: the more guys, the better.
That's the way it rolls, you know. How many you've got on the group, you know. People will come, people will leave the group, and that's just the way it is.
Yep. Well, Colin, I think from my point of view, it's almost saying thank you, because you've done a lot to bring a lot of guys together, given them a place where they can connect. And I've made a bunch of friends out of PAR, and a lot of the PAR guys are best mates now. They're out there, you know, holidaying together and doing all sorts of things. So a lot of that's, you know, credit to you, mate, that you've done that. And that's helping not just them have a whole lot of fun on bikes, but it's helping their mental health. So, mate, thanks very much. And thanks for letting us in your shed.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys.